I kind of feel like the relationship between the media and the Republican Party probably really started to break down after Katrina. I feel like that's around the time that, I mean, yeah, there's always the whole like the liberal media leans to the left kind of stuff by nature. And that, to whatever degree that was true beforehand, it's up for debate. But I feel like it was the post Katrina time, and the media became a bit too, antagonistic towards the Bush administration, and this caused Republicans to get more kind of clammy towards them. It's increasingly harder for them to get access, especially as also the years of the Iraq War and all that kind of stuff played on, and all the early stories that the media helped promote to get everyone into the war kind of started to fall through. No WMDs, all that kind of stuff. Then, Obama happened. I feel like the media, in some ways, they kind of think they made that happen. Like if it weren't for them, the support they gave to Obama and giving him the platform and yada yada yada, America wouldn't have managed to get its act together enough to vote the man into office. I think they way over examined the demographics from the post vote polling on election day there in 2008, and to whatever truth there is, whatever kind of like left wing coalition that Obama had stitched together to get him elected, I feel like they read a bit too much into that, as if it was some sort of permanent alliance that he was going to be able to hold together, and it was not just a temporary thing of people who happened to like the same guy. As an Obama voter, it was just purely because like it's not like we get a whole lot of options with our president candidates here. So insofar as like preferring any one candidate over another, this is all like, making the best out of like a limited selection. But there's reasons why I liked Obama, and for the most part, I still feel like he performed pretty much as I expected him to throughout the years of his term. I feel like both sides, in their own kind of ways, the left kind of overly deified him, and the right kind of overly vilified him. And the media, though, definitely kind of, like got it into their heads that they were responsible for this. This created a culture of increased accessibility and back and forth between the one party and the media apparatus. And now we are where we are. Trump gets elected. I still feel that the real reason why there's so much fervor at the top levels of power about Trump was because it's like a Frankenstein and Frankenstein's monster kind of thing. Long before the debates, all the whole year leading up during the primary was just all this stuff on the news, and especially on the comedy news, about how like there's no chance in hell that Hillary Clinton could lose if Trump wins the election on the Republican primary, and all that kind of stuff. And then it blows up in their face, and they have to do a mad scramble to try to recontain this stuff, as all their international plans and contracts and shit are just being like shredded to the wind. And now, the mad scramble after he's out of office to try to repair things, which is all, as I think we can quite plainly see around us, a little bit of a too little too late scenario. What I find interesting, though, is after the 2020 election, is how briefly the media looked at those polling exit results in terms of the demographics of who voted for who. There was very little talk about it, and it's almost been immediately shut up about. I remember, just barely even like a day after, Biden was elected, still hearing people IRL making comments about like, white dudes being the quote unquote problem. And yet, though, if you look at those polling results, Biden won because of white men. Biden, there is such a surge of voting on both sides that it's an unusual election in that way, too, because there's people voting for both who normally wouldn't have come out to vote. However, overall, Biden won because of a larger increased percentage of white male voters, while at the same time showing a slip in the numbers of Hispanics, blacks, and women. So the idea, it's just kind of strange in a way, how still the default after Biden gets into office is, white straight man bad, when Biden wouldn't be there if it hadn't been for the support of white bad straight man. So And yeah, it's curious how they just kind of like ignore that and keep bowling along because they still, like this is their magic coalition. This is the formula that's going to keep those dirty Republicans out of office forever and all that kind of stuff. I started thinking all this was last night. I heard some story about a statement about. You'll have to forgive me. I can't remember the guy's name. It's like Caesar something, but he was the MMA fighter who had been arrested and charged with attempted murder because he had chased down across LA and tried to shoot some kid who allegedly molested his son. And I was just kind of thinking about that and like my own, past experiences of like, like not only just being, a poor white guy, but like not living at all like in affluent neighborhoods, but living in, like around other poor people of different ethnicities and being around some tough characters and like knowing what that kind of culture is like and yeah, the that Caesar guy doing that's not a surprise. And when you relate that to things like the slipping support for Disney, the increasing numbers of Hispanics who seem to be switching over to the right-wing column, it got me thinking, like I don't think I've ever heard of any instance of any of this, like, gender unicorn stuff in schools ever being promoted in any of the poorer schools. I could be wrong. I just can't seem to ever recall ever hearing about any of this kind of stuff, coming out of, Central LA's high schools, or in the really poor, where's the gender unicorn in Baltimore's schools? What about Detroit? How come this always seems to be coming out of, once again, your richer, nicer, posh places, but you don't seem to hear much of this amongst, the schools that serve the poor kids. Machismo is a thing when people who have nothing kind of like only have themselves. And so like your own personal sense of honor and reputation, like in a way is like more important to maintain because it's not like you can just kind of float above everything with money kind of a thing. I just, Disney's trajectories, all the various things going on with the left, about like sexuality. There's sections of the population that they don't want to have to address because there's sections of the population that they've already declared as being guaranteed on their side because of skin color or gender or other things. But there's large sections of those populations that aren't ever going to be like, hip to this kind of stuff being promoted to their kids. And yeah, so I'm just curious if actually there has been anything about like, the harder schools that they used to make, movies about in the 90s in LA, that are racked with gang problems and, everything's metal detectors and all that kind of stuff. Sam Jackson, he's just got to get through to this boy. All that kind of school. Are they promoting any of this shit in those neighborhoods? And if not, why not? So I don't know. Just some things to think about as you're enjoying your morning. I would also say it's strange how it also seems to be like, since Trump got elected, it's like the opposite of the president's party is the agenda that gets pushed the hardest throughout the country. While Trump was in office, an awful lot of left stuff got pushed further. And now that Biden's in office, there's an awful lot of states pushing right-wing shit forward. It's kind of paradoxical compared to how most presidential terms operate in this country. And so we'll see how long this particular trend lasts. Yeah, I don't know. Is all this DEI stuff only being directed at the middle class and above kids in this country? Is this something that they actually don't give a shit about the poor parts of these populations, even the parts of the poor people who are, people of color and all that kind of stuff? Like I said, I'd be curious. I have never heard any indication of any sort of this stuff being promoted in schools that are in extremely impoverished cities or neighborhoods. But once again, I mean, like it's not like I'm paying that close attention to like all the school curriculum in the country or anything. So it could easily be something that actually is happening, and it just never raises any controversy in those kinds of regions for some reasons. I don't know. It just seems a little sus. Stay waspinated.